Now on to the FZ, or in other parts of the world, MT10. We're going to go ahead and ride this one today as well. So we'll take a look at what we've got for settings. Now with the handlebars being on top, it's a little more awkward, so you've got to be a lot more careful. Again, exactly the same as the R1, R6 forks, so let's see if they're the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oof. This one's at 4 clicks out on rebound. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move over to the other side and see. 1, 2. No, that's a 2. So we know these are not at stock settings. So now we have a dilemma. What do we do? So anytime, road or track, doesn't matter, or even race, you have to check your cold pressure. Now cold pressure in the middle of August at Buttonwillow when it's 110 degrees is not the same as this morning where it's 65. So setting cold pressures ideally at home is much better late at night, because at that point the tire it's not cold, but it's certainly not hot. We have Dunlop Q3 Pluses on our Yamaha demo bikes today as they're sponsored by Dunlop. So we'll be working with a tire other than, I believe, the Bridgestone RS comes on them stock. We verified that we're at 31 front and rear. I know this gauge is accurate because I calibrated it a little while ago, 3 weeks ago. So I know I'm in the ballpark. So all I'm looking for is, again, on track is at least 4, but no more than 7.
My name is Mike Pond. I just came in off the FZ1. Bone stock suspension, went out and did a few laps on it, excuse me. Really soft bike, really comfortable bike, upright type seating situation, so it took me a minute to get adjusted to it. But again, stock suspension, extremely soft. If you bear it into the corner, it would compress the suspension enough that you would drag foot peg. You know, things like that. I think a little bit of Dave Moss adjustment on it is going to make a huge difference and actually make the bike more rideable for the track situation. In stock form, you know, these bikes, especially the FZ1, they come where they can handle the roughness of the standard street. Once you get out here to the track, you know, that's why Dave said that they put clickers on it, so we can actually adjust the thing to work in this environment.
So as you can see from the travel tie, she's buried stock, and that means that while this fork visually looks identical to an R1 fork, it clearly is not, because we had a ton of travel left on the first run, and this is all the way down. So we have to significantly change what we've got in the front end. I'm going to put in 3 turns of preload, 3 clicks of compression, and then we're going to see how the rebound is once the spring tension is increased, to see if we're going to go and need a rebound change as well. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Then compression 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we've got to check on fork rebound and see if it's cavitating or bouncing over the top. Yep. Not by much, so we'll try 2 clicks.
Don't believe what they tell you.
1, 2. 1, 2. Much better. A lot more control. On the rear, I'm going to add a bunch more rebound because it jumps. If you watch the exhaust can, it goes into almost 3 bounces, so we're going to put in a huge amount. We were at 11. I got to go lay down and do this because I can't take the foot peg off. So I'm going to change it from 11 to 6. 10, 9, out hot, 8, 7, whoo, hot. One more for 6. There's 6. All right, Dave, go back the other side where you were so we can watch the exhaust can.
I felt like the thing was just squat down in the corner, Dave.
Yeah. Now the can doesn't shake, it doesn't jump. So if we look at the whole bike, so to me compression is still too soft. So I'm going to put that to 4 from closed. So let Dave come around. So it was 11 and I'm going to do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that should even the bike up substantially between front and rear settings. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Much better. All right. So that's ready for Mike to go ride it.
I'll be back shortly to let you know how it goes. So yeah, I'm here with Dave Moss today. We've made a few different changes to a few of these motorcycles. We're out doing some laps on them, seeing how much we can improve the stock suspension from where it comes to us. I went out on the FZ1 bone stock. The bike was really mushy, very little feedback, hard to get it to turn, hard to finish the corners, that type of thing. So we came in, Dave made some changes. Made some clicker changes, nothing really to do with geometry, just in the actual settings. Went back out, the bike was a lot more compliant, I had a lot more feedback. I could tell what the bike was doing, but it was still really soft, had problems finishing corners. Very mushy mid-corner as well, as far as trying to get it to turn. After that session, everything was going great. The bike was a lot better from the first session. Made some great changes, and we're going out for round 3.
Mike went out with the amended settings. So what do we get now? Look how clean the fast tire of the side is. This is the soft compound. This is the joint with the middle of the tire. So we've got a Hypersport tire. So the joint's clearly defined and it's straight. It doesn't wave from stress. So he's on the gas here.
Wait, where?
So on throttle is here and it's still round, which is good. And this is coasting. So we're getting rubber balls. We've still got a bit of debris here, and we still have a triangle shape right there. So we still need a little bit more rebound damping in it. And up here, this edge is slightly rounded down, but not severe. So we're still getting a little bit of lift, which is why we're getting debris here versus balling just on the edge of the tire and this completely clean, because that will just fall away and just wipe away. So fast side of the tire, beautifully clean, great traction. No sandy beach though at all. It's lumpy. So what that lumpy part means is in here where it's all rough, kind of like snakeskin, is compression's too tight. I went too far. So we need to back compression off, probably only 2 clicks, but tire pressure itself is awesome. So let's go to the slow side of the tire. So we should see debris, and we see a lot of debris, which is expected. We also see our triangle clear as day, again reinforcing that we need rebound. And Mike's on the gas, partial throttle here, and full throttle there versus here. So the slow side of the track is brake, turn, gas. The fast part of the track is brake, gas, turn. So that's why the throttle on point on the left side of the bike is much higher because of the nature of the corners, but this triangle reinforces more rebound. rest of the wear is reasonably good up here, but it's still that snakeskin rough. So we've still not got the settings between rebound and compression right. So we're going to try more rebound, less compression. So let's go look at the front. So we stiffened the front up considerably, and he bottomed it out again all the way down. So the settings that we put in were nowhere near stiff enough. The other part about that is if rebounds too fast, it's weighting the front. So as far as that goes, we have no debris here on the leading edge at all. So tire pressure is fine. These are still even here, but it's getting ever so slightly chewed away down there. Ever so slightly. And if you look at the wear, it has a swell to it between each one. So the short ones will show a real pronounced swell up and down. So that's the carcass getting stressed and flexing. So while it doesn't show tire pressure needs to be higher, this movement shows sidewall flex. So because we've got this ocean swell here, I'd be much more inclined to put 1 to 1.5 psi in it. Now remember, this is the fast side of the tire. So on the slow side, where we've got much more harder braking, look at those braking lines, really profound. And guess what? They disappear again. So rebound is still too slow in the front because we can't get those braking lines over here. They're starting to show up. They're coming. So another couple of clicks off rebound will be good. But the tire itself, because he's on the bottom, is overheating. This is not from tire pressure. This is from running the bottom of the stroke on a heavy braking track, which is stressing and overheating the tire. So on the front, we're going to add some more preload. We're going to let out some rebound, and we're going to add a couple of clicks of compression. All right, so 2 turns of preload in. Oh, wrong socket. That's a 14. Okay, let's go 2 turns of preload in. 1, 2. 1, 2. We're going to add 2 clicks of compression to each leg. 1, 2. 1, 2. Now the last thing on the front forks is when they come from the factory, they're at line number 1. I rode this bike for 7 weeks in New Zealand and put 8,000 miles on it. So I slowly played with fork geometry here, and this was by far the best setting, period, end of story. Now that was for me. We'll see if Mike likes it or doesn't like it. So the geometry change is done for a specific reason, which when Dave debriefs him will become immediately apparent. So I'm not going to say anything about that because I don't want to prejudice that. So we're going to take out compression and we're going to add rebound in the back. So we're going to add 1, 2, and then I get the other Allen and get underneath the bike again and bring it out 2. In 2, sorry. Okay. Because of the triangles, we need to go in. So 1, 2 in. And then the last thing we need to check is static sag. So, shock's nice and hot. How much can I lift it up? I can't. So, given Mike's weight and ability now, with a really hot shock, hot metal expands, so it will consume all the static sag we had that was there when it was cold. So that tells us now that the spring is too soft for his ability and weight combined. So we're getting in the last 20% of the fork setup. We're already lost all our static sag in the bag, so it needs a new spring. So a rider of his weight and ability versus a slightly heavier rider that goes reasonably quick should look at immediately revalving and respringing this bike right out of the gate.
Again, Mike Pond here. Just got in from round 3 on the FC1. Dave went in, made some clickers for our first settings. After the last session, round 2 on it, with just clicker changes, the bike was significantly better. But he made some geometry changes, and night and day difference on the bike. The bike will actually turn mid-corner now, under throttle. Its finishing corner is better. It's still a little soft in the back, but there's only so much you can do with preload and adjustments. Compared to the way the bike was initially, night and day difference. We got some children behind us here that I had to wave at. Okay, so yeah, after round 3, Dave got in, changed the geometry, made the bike a whole lot more planted. Mid-corner, it actually feels like a real motorcycle. It's probably not the right thing to say, but it's very compliant. You get feedback now. The suspension's actually moving back at us so that you can actually feel what the tires are doing. In the initial ride on it, it absorbed everything. So you didn't know what the tires were doing. It wasn't very confidence inspiring, I guess is the word for it. With the final setup, I have confidence on the front end. I can run it in deep, run it in hard, get on the brakes, turn it while keeping the throttle cracked, and then finishing the corners, you just roll on, finish it out. I've noticed with it, because like I was saying before, that the back end is soft, you have to be mindful on acceleration coming out of corners. You can't just hammer it and let the electronics do the work, because the bike comes out of balance. As long as you're smooth on the inputs, the bike is a very well riding bike around here after the setting changes.
So after the 3rd setting, the rear tire is still extremely smooth here, but we still don't have any graining, but we have even more orange peel effect now. And there's a reason that orange peel effect is there, which we'll get to when we look at the front of the bike. But again, just on top here, hard acceleration all the way through. Very little debris here in regards to rolling, and balls of rubber on the outside that are a little smaller than they were before. So we tightened up compression in the back, and so it's giving this marking here. But the geometry change in the front also took weight off of the rear tire, so it didn't get as hot, which meant the balls were smaller and there was less of them on the fast side of the tire. So let's see what the slow side of the tire shows. So lots of debris all the way to the edge this time, but again, because of the nature and design of the course, acceleration happens higher up the tire on lefts, because we're going in and out of them. We don't want to stay in there a huge amount of time. So nice and clean on top again, not quite as orange peel as the other side, but it's short bursts in and out of the corner, so that makes perfect sense. So let's go look at the front. Now, given the geometry change, we put a ton more weight on the front, because the rake and trail of this bike is way out there. So if we wipe this down, our braking marks go right across the tire. So braking is significantly better on both sides. And so we'll get them all the way through. The other thing is, now I was concerned, so if you shoot it from that angle, you'll see that ledge. There's actually a ledge in the tire now, plus the wear on the outside. So my concern about the tire over-flexing and being too soft, now that Mike trusts the front end so much more, he's actually trenching the front tire and putting a distinct line all the way in it. Because the front tire is being asked to work so hard So the front tire now is significantly underinflated, and we have balls of rubber on our tread. So they don't want to come off. So much more trust, much more faith, way harder on the front end, and that gives us this band here, this line, where the front would literally, if you kept riding, this line would become a trench that would go into the tire because it's chronically underinflated now that he feels it's good. But we completely bottomed out again. So as we looked at the overall picture, his ability, the capability of the OEM suspension is now inadequate. So it requires immediately a revalve, respring, and the key point there is on the back of the bike. You always want static sag, right? Well, we couldn't. If we'd have given him static sag, what would have happened to the pitch of the bike? So now, even though the front was lowered to ring number 3 versus ring number 1, he's getting on the gas, and the back, as the spring is so soft, is just collapsing. So introducing static sag would have been a nightmare and made this completely unrideable. Taking the static sag away gave us a band-aid, which is far from perfect, but it gives us a really good guide on what strength of spring we need to get in the back to allow him to ride it harder and get more out of it. Problem with this bike, it has no compliance in the seat whatsoever. So the discomfort of the seat completely changes the way in which the bike rides. Completely. So
is that the stock seat, or has he changed it?
no, that's
Stock seat.
that is the stock board.
Got it.
That is not a seat at all.
It's
So
into mahogany at about 50 miles.
actually, I think it's more, what is it, ironwood.
My buddy
From
crashed
Tahiti.
his, and he's got the comfort seat, so
Oh, you're taking that. Good.
I'm gonna grind him for it. Yeah,
All right, on you get. Let's do some measuring.
What year is it?
This is a
17,
17. All right, so how many miles are on it?
10,000.
Okay. No full coil service, no shock coil service?
Correct.
Okay.
Stock numbers on this.
Okay.
Touch the suspension.
All right, so off you get, 510. And so you're at 32 mil in the back, and you've got static. The static's just a bit too generous on this bike off the showroom floor, especially for those of us that are proud to be over 200. So,
200 miles an hour.
pounds, so.
I'm a little under that.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right, so we've got so much static, what we want to do is actually take some of that away. With high horsepower and high torque from this engine, it squats too quick because the spring tension is too soft. So I'm going to put in 2 turns of preload onto the shock. To start.
2 clicks or 2 whole turns.
2 whole turns. If you're going to do something, get on with it. So, one of the big things about motorcycles today is that a couple clicks really won't make an ounce of difference unless you have something very, very high end. And at that point, with it being very high end, you also have to have the level of sensitivity that you can feel it. And if you don't have that level of sensitivity, it's still worthless. So you basically start from all in and all out and see if you can train yourself to be a lot more sensitive in that regard.
So are you adding tension to that spring or removing it?
So if I turn down to make the spring shorter, is again, right, which means it is stiffer. I'm crushing the spring because I'm screwing down on it. So what I'm trying to do now is mitigate that static sag so we don't have anywhere near as much. So when you hit the gas, it doesn't.
Do that again, Dave.
No.
Do what I tell you.
So with your previous setting and the static sag that was too big, you're already here. And then you get the torque of the engine and it just, which is fine for wheelies, that's great, and the wheelie control does its job, but the weight transfer back plus sag means you're riding like that, and it was never meant to be ridden that way. So bringing it up brings the back up slightly. The other part is with you sat on it, it's boinging.
I felt that.
So we've got to fix that. And to do that, your foot peg has to come off. To get to the rebound adjuster, because for this model with the generous ergonomics they provide you with, it blocks, you can't get any access to that screw whatsoever.
So I'm here.
Brilliant. Engineers, 4-year degrees, lots of money. So smart.
Well, it's smart in the fact that a taller rider can be a lot more comfortable on this bike. Different?
It's way more docile. The back is a bit bouncy. I don't know if that's a
Because I made it too stiff. So I gotta fix it. Hang on. Red Loctite,
Now
wonderful.
you're adjusting the
Rebound,
rebound.
which is right there.
You're adding rebound.
Right, so we got so much flow in the back of the bike.
I had on my Q3 Pluses, I was getting a lip on the forward end of the sight, and I think you told me I needed to add rebound at that time when I met you.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 12 where you were at, and it's still bouncing. So that's 6. So now we'll go to 3, and it's better. Still need one more, and it's better again. So we have 1 click left on rebound. Shocks are supposed to be serviced between 8 and 10, 1,000 miles. You're at that service interval, so we're running out of clicks. Fresh oil,
Okay.
right? So shock service is good. Now with a shock service, they have to take the shock apart. So it will be a perfect time for you to get a piston kit installed in that to replace the stock one in terms of valving. And then you'll be in the middle of adjustment instead of always at the end.
Who sells that? What name should I look for?
GP suspension out of Oxnard.
Out of Oxnard.
Yeah, GP suspension.
Will they do the service for me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll know where to put it now that you've got it here?
Oh yeah.
Every 10,000, huh?
My street bike's every 6 for the forks and the shock. I want it to handle well all the time, so I change it at that interval. To me, it's worth it. Fork oil's 25 bucks. I will spend that money willingly to get that done so that the consistency of oil and handling is always the same. And I don't have to keep chasing clickers left and right, because the oil viscosity cold to hot and the variance with old oil drops dramatically, right? So for 25 bucks, I can keep my clickers within a couple of clicks range, period, for 5,000 miles. So life is much better that way. Okay, so that's done. So now your compression is up here, which is bump compliance. The 4mm Allen is for just general road. The gold dial here, the 14mm nut, that's for high speed, which means manhole covers, cracks in the road, expansion joints in the freeway. And its function is to make sure the shock doesn't bottom out. So as you hit something hard, it's going to push it through the stroke, right? So its function is to mitigate that and not allow that sudden massive increase in velocity to break things. So once the gold one's set, generally you leave it alone. This one you can play with for bump compliance. So for you, I'm going to set you to 8 clicks out.
Where was it?
12 is stock. And then you can go 6 and 10. Which side did you prefer based on the roads you ride and the way you ride? So you can fine tune this yourself to whatever you need. So I'm going to set the gold one at 2.5 turns from maximum. And that's where it's going to live. So we've got to close it first and go all the way clockwise till it shuts.
Where was it?
It should be at 2.5 out from the factory.
Yeah, where is it from the factory?
2.5. That's where it should be, and that's where it's going back to. So because I can't get a socket in there, you have to use an open-ended spanner. So at that point, I'm just counting the number of faces I'm turning it. 6 faces equals 1 turn, right? There, so that's it. So now, if we want 2.5 turns, that's 12 faces plus 3. So 15. So 1.
12 faces plus 6.
6 is a whole turn.
Oh, okay, right. I failed math.
I tried to correct him once. It happened to me too.
Okay, so that's the back of the bike now set up properly to your weight and the way you ride it. So now we've got to go to the front. So what I learned in New Zealand with 8,000 miles in 6 weeks on this bike is how this front end is horribly wrong, both in terms of geometry and settings. So when this bike comes off the showroom floor, realistically it's sat like this with the front extremely high, irrespective of sag numbers. So the first job is to drop this front end a ridiculous amount.
You had emailed me some instructions over our winter.
Yep,
Drop it 2 rings.
yep, and you didn't do it.
I don't touch this thing. I ride it.
So there's ring number 1, right? That's where it comes from the factory. So what we're going to do now is change it to ring number 3. There. So that's how much we got to drop the front end to make this thing turn at all. But again, that's 8,000 miles of work and riding and testing.
That's why I was happy to see that you bought the MT10 and you'd know about it when I got here.
Yep. So now we'll match the other side and make that correct.
This would have been all day for me. Then worry.
So I just went through some great roads.
Oh, okay.
But I'll do it next.
Not quite. Slow down, Chief. That's 2.
No alignment issues when you're doing that?
No, sir. 3. The line is clearly visible. So you
In alignment as far as can they turn left and right while you're doing that?
they can turn all over the place, but I try and keep them in exactly the same position as stock.
I have another bike.
What do you mean, like this? Not parallel.
Yeah, they turn this way.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. When it's loose, right?
You know, that's why I just say I'll wait for Dave. No, those are Rizomas. They're beautiful. Thank you.
Italian sunglasses.
And then the other part of that front end is it's horrifically stiff. Horrible. So we're going to take all the preload out of the forks. And we're going to go in 3 turns. Repeat.
Where was it before?
9.
Oh, I can't wait to get this thing in the canyons.
It's a good mix of.
So he wasn't using all the suspension.
You can't. What's the pitch of the motorcycle?
Oh, I didn't see what it was. Was it
The pitch. What did we do to the front end?
Well, you just loosened the front end. You just gave it. You just took away preload. Is that right?
So you missed the adjustment?
I did.
That's down 20 millimeters. So all your rebound is locking the front end down. So you're trying to pivot. So we're going to take all the rebound out and go 6 in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Repeat.
That was 12 also.
Solid.
No.
It's still on it, so but changed to one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on compression, how hard do you brake?
10% of the time, very hard.
Okay.
Mostly I'm a corner speed guy on the ride.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Straights and 70 in the turns. Best as I can keep it.
Okay.
Mostly smooth, but 10% is attack mode.
Got it. So now, something you've never had.
To schedule a remote tuning appointment for you and your bike with Dave,